Well, hi there. It is just before 3 o'clock on Friday afternoon and time to show up. I'm showing up. I'm glad you showed up. I appreciate every single one of you. Do the little YouTube dance, like, comment, subscribe, all that happy horse shit. And let's shit in the box. Again, because I'm a dumbass. Well, that's not news. This just in, Caliban Darklot, complete fucking dumbass. That's what the CD actually stands for, complete dumbass. Anyway, I just finished about an hour of ranting about some stuff. And then I went to upload it, and I thought, what the hell's going on? Because the file was locked. I couldn't upload it because the file was locked. And I went back to OBS, and it was still recording. And I said, oh, I forgot to hit stop recording. So I hit stop recording, and I went back to upload the video, and it was like 12 seconds long. I didn't forget to hit stop recording. I forgot to hit start recording. So when I went to stop the recording, I actually started the recording, and then the file was locked and I couldn't upload it. And then I went back in and stopped the recording, and I only had a few seconds because, yeah, so I'm a fucking dumbass. And I already did this video once, but now I have to do it. And I don't remember what the first video was about, actually. I don't remember where I started. I know where I ended up, and where I ended up was like screaming left turn into God fucking knows where, as usual. But, yeah. So anyway, in the interim, in between doing that and going, oh, God damn it. And I already drank my beer for the video. So if I go and I get another beer, well, now my count of beer is going to be off for like the rest of the fucking year. So I guess I could drink one of these Elysian Indian Pale Ales. I could drink one of my Elysian IPAs, but God, those fucking suck. I don't like them. They're just not good. So I didn't want to do that. So because I didn't want to do that, I said, fuck it, rum and Coke. And in the meanwhile, while I was going through that whole conversation in my mind of, I don't want to ruin the count of beers. I don't want to drink an Elysian IPA. So during that, I was over on Tumblr, and I know some of you are sitting there going, why is a guy in his late 50s on Tumblr? And I was talking to one of my teenage mutuals, and I know a bunch of you are going, now hold on, why does a guy in his late 50s have teenage mutuals? And I'm getting to that. And they're talking about these original characters that they're building. They're talking about these things that they're putting together. Oh, I had this idea, and I had that idea, and I had this other idea. But then I've got this one character that I just don't know what to do with. I don't have enough of an idea what to do with them. And this is what I know about them, and this is kind of the themes that I want to cover, and I don't know what to do. And I went, ooh, I know what I would do. I know the thing that I would do with that. And I think it would be really cool. So I told them the thing that I would do. And I said, I think it would be really cool if you did this thing. And I don't want to blow the whistle on what it is, because if I blow the whistle on what it is, some of y'all may be on Tumblr, and then you'll know who it is. And I don't necessarily want to out somebody for being friends with me on Tumblr. You never know who these fucking people are. But anyway, they thought the idea was really cool, and they got really excited about it. They're like, oh, now I have everybody. Now I know what to do. Now I can go, and I can start doing the thing. Awesome. And that's why. That's why I'm on Tumblr, and that's why I have Teenage Mutuals, because none of y'all old farts ever get excited about any fucking thing. You don't make anything. You don't do anything. You don't try to make anything or do anything. All you do is bitch. So yeah, that's why I don't really hang out with people my age. That's why I don't really enjoy fraternizing and socializing with people my own age. 'Cause we suck. We fucking suck. I do have some friends my age, and some of them, I cannot remember the last conversation we had that was not about their medical history. I don't care. I don't care about your medical history, okay? These are conversations that you and I would have privately and intimately at like a moment of unguarded closeness. They should not be every fucking conversation that we have. They really shouldn't. But yeah, that's why I actively cultivate friendships with younger people. That's why I actively prefer hanging around places that there are younger people. Because they're fun. Y'all stop being fun. Somewhere in your 30s, you just fucking quit. You quit being fun. Man, that first drink was almost pure rum. Holy crap. That was a bit of a surprise there. Not that I'm complaining. I am definitely not complaining. Fucking thing. I really need to get a new camera. It's really fucking annoying. It's like, I have developed this theory of human development. And that theory kind of goes like this. Hold on a second. I sound like a fucking foghorn when I blow my nose, so I try not to subject you people to that shit. Anyway, this is kind of my theory of human development. And it's based on some neurological and neurobiological concepts that it's very fucking annoying to me because sometimes I talk to someone with a background in neuroscience and they know exactly what I'm talking about and they nod their head enthusiastically. And sometimes I talk to someone with a background in neuroscience and they say, "Where the fuck did you hear that? Where did that come from? I'm not aware of this." I don't know what to tell you, dude. I don't know what to tell me. I mean, I'm sitting here and it's like, I have more or less developed this hypothesis. I don't want to call it a theory. I mean, in order to have a theory, you need to have experimental data supporting it, okay? I don't have experimental data. I have anecdotal evidence. I have empirical evidence. I have looked around and gone, yeah, this is a thing. I have watched people over extended periods of time and gone, yeah, this is a thing. But the difference between science and fucking around is writing it down. And I don't write it down. I just fuck around. So I come up with this stuff and I go, this is my hypothesis. And I try very hard not to say this is my theory because it's not a theory. I didn't do real science. I didn't write it down. I was just fucking around, you know? And this is the basic concept. Every 6 to 7 years, your brain kind of reorganizes itself and you basically turn into a different person. All right? So it's like somewhere between 6 and 7 years old, you just like magically become a smarter and more fully realized human being. Okay? It's not magic, it's your brain reorganizing itself. It's neural pruning. And neural pruning isn't strictly speaking what I'm talking about. Neural pruning is the technical term for like the brain getting rid of unused connections. But what I'm actually talking about is kind of a remapping. And what kind of happens is that your brain goes, okay, over the past 6 to 7 years, we have learned a bunch of shit. How much of that shit has been useful during those 6 to 7 years? And if it was useful, then the brain goes, okay, we're going to pave the road to this thing because it was useful. And if it was only kind of useful, if it wasn't useful, but, you know, it wasn't a fucking problem, it goes, okay, that can still have a dirt road to it. And if it was actively harmful, your brain goes, yeah, I think we're going to put this away. I think we're going to take this and we're going to put it in a box over here. And I have a metaphor that I use about a desk, but I don't want to get into it right now. I like the roads concept because everybody agrees on that. Everybody agrees that when we're talking about, your brain making connections, the connections are like roads. Okay, so your brain will remove some roads. It goes, that road was like bad and I don't want to go down it anymore. And then it'll leave some roads just like little dirt roads. It'll go, it's okay. And then other ones it goes, let's pave this and make it nice and smooth to go down because that was useful. And this is one way that your brain operates. Okay, is you get this neural pruning, but every other round of neural pruning is like hardcore. It's like serious hardcore shit where your brain goes, okay, we're going to go through and we're going to do an improvement process on everything. We're not just going to go, what's new? What should we pave? What should we leave a dirt road? We're going to look at all the stuff we've already done. And we're going to make improvements where they need to be made, and we're going to let things fall apart where they're falling apart. And this is where you forget stuff. And like sometimes it looks down what used to be a dirt path, and it goes, well, that's all overgrown. Fuck this shit. We're going to take what's at the end of that path and throw it in the box. And it's basically forgotten. It's still in there. It's still in your brain. Your brain never like completely throws things away. It has a perfect eternal record of everything. It's just like in there. It's just in a big pile of crap, and it's hard to locate. It's hard to identify the thing. So because you're going through these kind of little moments where it's like 6 to 7 years and everything changes, and then 6 to 7 years later, you have that 12 to 14 year mark, and everything changes dramatically. And that's what they call axon terminal neural pruning. And people will go, oh yeah, axon terminal neural pruning, yeah, that's a thing. And then you go, and that will happen again after another 12 to 14 years. They go, I'm not so sure about that. Why do you think the adult brain doesn't develop until the age of 25? It's another 12 to 14 years. That's what it is. That's what happens. What do you think is going on? I'm not sure there's any research to suggest. There isn't any research to suggest, but for God's fucking sake, I mean, we know this, okay? Just like we know everybody hits their midlife crisis in their late 30s. Well, if you're talking these 12 to 14 year periods, that's in the 36 to 42 range. That's right when you're pushing 40. That's when you hit that third moment, and that's when you reinvent yourself. It's fucking obvious. It's right there. We've known it since the beginning of fucking time. I don't know. There's not a whole lot of science on this. That's why I call it an hypothesis. Because I'm making shit up. I'm fucking around. It's not science. I'm not a scientist. I'm an engineer. There's a difference between a scientist and an engineer, and you can tell from the spelling. But anyway, we got this thing that goes on, and the thing is, I think we have these definite patterns, and those patterns are like in that first 12 to 14 years, you're basically a child. You can't have any conversations with this person. But then in the next 12 to 14 years, they're interesting. They're doing cool shit. They're reaching the point in their lives where they're like, wait a minute, I have power. I have agency, I have volition, I can make decisions, I can do things for myself. And I think it's really cool when they start doing that because they start going, maybe I can do this. And they don't have that circuit in the back of their head that's going, no, you can't. No, you fucking can't. They haven't developed imposter syndrome yet. They have chunibyo, which is a different thing. But it's like, during this stage, during this 12 to 14 year stage, between the ages of 12 to 14 and 24 to 28, somewhere between like 13 to 26, like right in there, people are fascinating and they're really fucking cool. Okay? And then you get the gradual realization that everything's fucked and that nobody wants them to do things and that nobody wants them to try things and nobody's interested in their shit. And it's in that third stage, in that third 12 to 14 year block, everybody kind of sits there and goes, oh man. And this is where they have bought into the system and go, the world can tell me who to be. But around the end of this third period is where they go, now wait a minute. No, it fucking can't. I still have agency and volition, and I can do shit. And off they go, and they have their midlife crisis, and they start doing their thing, and people go, no, and they fuck up their lives. Because you're opting out of the community is basically what you're doing, and then you get up to like where I am, where you're in your mid-50s. And up here is where you're looking around and you're going, God damn, everything fucking sucks. And it's a struggle. It's a big struggle. And you go through 12 to 14 years of that, and somewhere between 60 and 70, you go, oh, wait a minute, I can do shit. I'm trying to skip the part where it sucks and remind myself that I can do shit, but I have this fucking imposter syndrome crap that is going on, and I think that's also part of it. I think you have that imposter syndrome as a kid, and then you lose it as an adolescent, and then you get it again as an adult, and then you lose it through your midlife crisis, and then you get into your mid-50s, and you go, wait a minute, it's time for imposter syndrome again. I'm just speculating. I'm just making shit up. I'm not writing it down. I'm not qualified to be coming up with this shit. But you know what? Fuck it. I'm kind of drunk. Which is more or less the theme of this channel. Anyway. I think a lot of people just never quite recover, because when you get through that period of adolescence and you get into quote-unquote adulthood, you have your adult brain for the next 12 to 14 years. You get into your mid-20s, and for 12 to 14 years, the world heaps garbage on top of you that you have to carry the rest of your life. I like hanging out with people that don't have any of that garbage. Because I have often found that even when people get to the end of even when people like opt out, they hit their midlife crisis, they go, wait, I can do whatever I want. They keep carrying the garbage. They don't put the garbage down. I think that's important. I think you need to put the garbage down. And some of it you can't put down because it's just, your brain does that shit. Your brain has built an 8-lane superhighway through some garbage, and you can't put it down because now it's holding up the road. I don't know if this metaphor is losing people, but once you've built a superhighway on top of the garbage, you have to keep the garbage. Because it's the only path to get to some of the shit that you've learned and some of the shit that you know? And the plus side of talking to young people is that they don't have that garbage. The downside, of course, is they haven't built a lot of roads. Sometimes it's hard to talk to them, but you can help them build new roads. It's really fucking easy. It's really easy to go, hey, here's a cool thing. Here's a thing that you've never thought of before. And you could take this thing you've never thought of before. You could just have it. And you can put this new thing in your head, and there it is. Whoa, cool. And that's a double-edged sword. Because Epstein, you could put some really nasty shit in kids' heads and make them believe it and make them do what you want and manipulate and coerce and control them. And that's really fucking nasty. But the problem is not the kids. And the problem is not the age of the people manipulating and controlling and coercing the kids. The problem is that they're fucking evil. And I think we have overreacted to a large degree in wanting young people not to interact with adults when they need to. It's important, because how else are you going to learn any fucking thing? You can't just infantilize entire generations on the grounds that somebody might tell them something that's wrong. We're supposed to be using schools to counteract this, and we're not. We're supposed to be using, our family and our neighbors. It takes a village to raise a child, as they say. Although I fucking hate that, because Hillary Clinton's always saying it. We have so many people in the world today that are bright, thoughtful, artistic, creative people, and they don't want to have kids. And it's okay to not have kids of your own if you're gonna cross-pollinate other people's kids with the cool shit that you know to make the world a better place. But if you're not, if you're going to avoid talking to kids, if you're going to avoid talking to people that are much younger than you, if you're just going to keep your shit to yourself and go, no, it's creepy to talk to teenagers. Well, in the romantic sense, yeah. A lot of people, when they say, I was talking to this person, they mean, I was trying to start a relationship with this person. That's creepy. That's gross. But that's not what people of my generation mean when we say we're talking to somebody. We just mean we're having a conversation. I was talking, they were listening. That's it. They were talking, I was listening. There you go. It's like that's talking to. There's no intention. There's no end game. We get so bound up. And where are we headed, and where are we going? And it's a good idea to kind of keep an eye on that. Like, since the last video, I have spent, I spent a substantial amount of time yesterday playing around with Reaper and looking at it and going, how do I do the shit that I'm used to doing in LMMS in Reaper? Turns out it's not all that difficult, But there are some minor issues with it that I need to figure out how I'm going to approach. But there's a lot of new shit in Reaper that I couldn't do in LMMS. And that's like, damn, I like this. I don't know what I'm going to do with it. But I like it, and I feel like I can do something with it. And after spending several hours messing around with Reaper, I spent the rest of the day playing Starfield, because that's the kind of person I am. The PlayStation release of Starfield is supposed to be on April 7th, according to some site in Poland that has a fairly good reputation for being accurate when it comes to leaks. And there goes my autofocus again. Really do need to start thinking about a new camera. But I did a bunch of research on Reaper, and I did a bunch of Starfield playing, and I did some sculpting. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm like just starting. What I did come up with. I was trying to figure out how I was going to build an armature. I used this old LED light bulb. It's plastic and it's burned out. But I used that. That's underneath of the head, so it's not 30 pounds of clay. And I really like these. I got these sculpting tools for the clay, and they're silicone rubber on the end, so they're very soft. Very soft and pliable and easy to work with, but they're stiff enough to work with the clay. And I'm very pleased with those. I actually got this little I got this little bag of tools. They were like 15 bucks. And there's a sponge, which I don't need because I'm working with plasticine, and plasticine doesn't need water. And there's this scraper that I haven't been using, but I could see myself using it. I can see myself using it in the future. This would also be good for like scoring perfectly straight lines, or even for getting little gentle curves like that. You can kind of flex it. I don't know. But then there's like all these little things that are just like, there's a little, it's just a little ball on the end. I think this is for, that's for some detail work. And then of course you got the wooden shit that you always get, and a little scraper. And then there's this thing, which I think is, it's some kind of wire brush that I suppose you would use to score the clay so you could stick it together with slip. Again, not something I need with plasticine. There's these plastic things. There's two balls, and two balls. There's always two balls. And then there's a couple of little flat things. Well, one of them's kind of a channel. One of them's kind of a curved channel. And then finally, there are these steel balls with blue handles. I think these are kind of interesting, but I don't know what the hell I would do with them. I don't know what any of these tools are actually good for or how they're supposed to be used. So I don't know. Maybe I will use them. Maybe I won't. But I have them. Although you'll notice the only ones that I actually have sitting out are little blue silicone guys. I like these. I like these because they're blue, and the blue is pretty. This one's actually my favorite. It's got a chisel tip. Got an angled chisel tip. And it's stiff, but it's also smooth on both sides. I can imagine using all of these. I can imagine all of them being a thing that I use, but for the moment, I'm not doing a whole lot. I'm just kind of doing initial work on the sculpt, and I do not know what I am doing. I have no fucking clue how to sculpt. But yeah, that's the thing that I'm working on, is trying to kind of sculpt the human head, because if you want to paint the human head, you need to sculpt the human head. According to some guy I saw on YouTube that, I don't know, maybe he knows what he's talking about. Everything is always just some guy that maybe they know what they're talking about. Some guy said something and it resonated with me, and I'm like, maybe that guy knows what he's talking about. And now I'm going to do the thing because he said to do the thing, and maybe he knows what he's talking about. You know, one of the things that has really shocked me over the years is how frequently people who know what they're talking about will tell you the most absolute fucking garbage. And how often people with no credentials, who clearly don't know what they are talking about, will just say the most profound shit that is deeply affecting. And I'm just... I don't know how to filter effectively anymore. I really don't, because I see people that have credentials saying this absolutely moronic shit. And then I turn around and I see a 14-year-old who's barely gotten into high school, and they'll just say something immensely profound. And I'm like, why was I listening to that guy with 3 PhDs? He doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about. I see people all the time, they're talking about stuff, and like, I know this stuff. I was talking to this guy about economics the other day. We were talking about externalities. And he was like, an externality necessarily comes out of an economic transaction. And it doesn't affect the parties to a transaction. and it causes overconsumption or underconsumption of resources. And I'm giving myself whiplash, shaking my head, because an externality is an economic effect that falls outside of a transaction. This includes all economic effects that don't come from a transaction at all. And a lot of people will like sit there and they'll stroke their chin and they'll go, how does an economic effect not fall out of a transaction? Initial supply of resource. The quantity of oil available on the planet Earth is an externality that applies to every single transaction that consumes oil. Every single one. And a lot of people will go, no, that's not an externality because it doesn't come out of a transaction. See, we said it has to come out of a transaction. But why is an externality relevant? Why is it relevant to call something an externality? The reason we call something an externality, the reason we say this is an externality, is to recognize that it isn't a part of this transaction. It is a part of something outside the transaction. We don't have control over it. We don't have agency over it. We can't say, okay, so if we're going to do this transaction, you're going to have more oil on the planet. That's not a thing you can say because it's an externality. It's an external resource. That effect that there's only so much, the supply of oil is an externality. And economists are going to try to argue with me about this. And they're going to say, well, because it's because it's a limited resource, well, it causes consumption. No. Because it doesn't have to alter consumption at all. Imagine for a moment that everybody agrees, for example, that if a factory is built on a river and pollutes the river, the pollution is an externality. Now, the community downstream of the river is experiencing the pollution that comes from the factory. Did it stop being an externality? Of course not. It's still an externality. Well, yes, because it started as an externality. Yes. Now back the fuck up and let me finish. So it's still an externality as an input to the community's response. But what if the community doesn't respond? What if there's no change in consumption? Does the pollution magically not happen? It doesn't result in overconsumption or underconsumption. Oh, yes, it does, says some economist jackass somewhere that I made up so I can yell at him. It results in an overconsumption because if they knew about the pollution, they would consume less of the river, and therefore they're overconsuming the river because of the inequality of information. Overconsumption and underconsumption are value judgments. We call something underconsumption when we think it's good and right and proper for the people to consume more. We call it an overconsumption when we consider it good and right and proper for someone to consume less. The question of whether there's an overconsumption or underconsumption is exclusively what we think is good and right and proper. That's what makes it overconsumption or underconsumption. It's what we think is good and right and proper. It's a value judgment. It's a moral judgment on consumption. And that doesn't belong in economics. That's our values inserted into the problem because we think we matter, and we don't. We're not parties to the transaction. We're inserting an externality. Anyway, this guy made a big deal of how he was a graduate candidate. And I quoted Gregory Mankiw at him. And Gregory Mankiw said that An externality arises when the well-being of a bystander is influenced. And there's more to that. It's the well-being of a bystander is influenced. And then there are some additional constraints on it. Oh, it's when a person engages in an activity that influences the well-being of a bystander. And I take issue with the question of it has to be a person. I don't think it does. And whether they have to engage in an activity, I don't think they do. Because my example for that is if you fart in a Volkswagen, then the well-being of bystanders is influenced, and that is clearly an externality. But what if your dog farts in a I remember the rest of it. It's when a person engages in an activity that influences the well-being of a bystander, but they neither pay nor receive compensation for that effect. They may pay or receive compensation for a different effect, but this one that influenced the well-being of the bystander, they did not pay or receive compensation for that. So that's the rest of the day. That's the complete Mankiw definition. I knew I'd remember it momentarily. Anyway, so what if your dog farts in the Volkswagen? If your dog farts in the Volkswagen, it influences the well-being of the passengers in the Volkswagen every bit as much, but it's not a person. Is it still an externality? I say it is. I absolutely say it is. Many economists disagree with me, but I also say that the weather is an economy and that heat exchange is a transaction, and that just breaks economists' brains. No, it's not. It's absolutely not. Yes, it is. It is. Go talk to a particle physicist. It's a transaction. It's a transaction that occurs with perfect competition and perfect information. No, that's not okay. You can't say that. Yes, I can. I just did. Anyway, lots of people disagree with me. I'm a heterodox thinker, and to be perfectly honest and to be absolutely transparent, I am thoroughly fucking unqualified to be talking about economics. I took one economics class in community college in the 1980s. Okay? That's it. But God, do I fucking read a lot of economic shit. I mean, I read all kinds of economic shit. And I hang out with economists and I argue with them, and sometimes I'm right. Not always. Sometimes I just don't know what I'm talking about. And they go, you don't know what you're talking about. And I go, okay, you tell me. And they go, well, this and that. And I go, oh, yeah, I didn't know what I was talking about. Like, I was talking to somebody once, and he was telling me that my argument was completely wrong because of the discount rate. So what the fuck is the discount rate? And he said the discount rate is how much one party to a transaction trusts the other party to a transaction. Nobody fully trusts the person that's trying to sell them something. They discount the value of the transaction by how likely they think it is that you're lying to them. Fucking hell, he's right. That does, like, completely. I don't remember what we were arguing about, but it was Russ Nelson, the quote-unquote open source economist. And we were arguing about something or other. I don't remember what we were arguing about, but what I was arguing was wrong because of the discount rate. And once you introduced the discount rate, my entire argument fell apart. And I was like, yeah, I didn't know what the fuck I was talking about. So yeah. But anyway, so we were at the dog farting in the Volkswagen. This channel is a circus. What the fuck? Anyway, we were at the dog farting in the Volkswagen. So if we accept that the dog can fart in the Volkswagen and that's still an externality, What if there's an ancient, forgotten Caesar salad under the back seat? And on this particular hot summer day, that festering Caesar salad under the seat should happen to rupture and befoul the air inside the Volkswagen. Well, clearly the well-being of the passengers is influenced in much the same way as a dog farting. I say that's still an externality. I think it's still an externality. There is no person. There is no activity. Nobody is engaged in anything. It just happened. Now, I do think that when the seal gives way on the rotten Caesar salad, I think that's a transaction. But man, economists do not like it when you suggest that physical processes are transactions. Physical processes are transactions. They say in quantum physics that no energy exchange can occur without a particle, and the particle may appear out of nowhere and disappear afterward. It can appear out of nowhere to affect the energy exchange and then disappear afterward. This sounds like bullshit to me, but if we accept it, that means an energy exchange is a deliberate transaction undertaken by a particle. No, I don't like that. I don't like that. I would rather the energy exchange is a transaction between whoever has the energy and whoever gets the energy, and they're making a trade. I like that better. The particle thing, I don't like the particle thing. I don't like that one bit. I'm not a fan of a lot of things that come out of quantum physics. Doesn't mean they're not true, but it does mean I don't fucking like them. Anyway. The thing that I'm really trying to focus on here, I'm scattering. I'm fucking drunk. I mix my rum and Coke stiff. Like it's like rum down to the label. There's a lot of fucking rum in here. Anyway, the core issue that I run into is I see so many people that they stop trying. They stop trying to make things, and they stop trying to do things, and they just kind of try to fit into the system. And I think that's destructive. I think it's destructive to everything. But I think most of all, it's destructive to you. I think if you're trying to fit into the system instead of to make and do things and to be excited and to do cool shit, I think that's destructive to you. I think that makes you into a boring and eventually shitty person. Don't fucking do that, you know? Keep trying, keep striving, keep looking for stuff that you can make, stuff that you can do. And try, just like legitimately try. I think that's what life's all about, really. I keep checking the button for stop recording to make sure that I started. I keep looking at it. I did start the recording, right? I did. I'm going to carry that baggage forever, I fucking swear. Anyway, do a little YouTube dance, like, comment, subscribe, all that happy horse shit. Okay, bye.